You're not on mute, but we cannot still hear you. I think now you're on. Can you try? No. Okay. There was somebody else clicking, then I assumed it was your voice.
No, that was probably me.
Okay.
We were able to hear Hannah just fine a couple minutes ago.
Exactly.
So we're not entirely sure what is happening right now. We're sorry for the delay.
Is it possible that you have more than one mics, that the computer is kind of trying to change it? Yeah, I think her picture is frozen as well.
I think so. In that case, maybe we should just get started so that Marko and Paulina can get to their presentations, and then perhaps Hannah will be able to figure out what's going on in the meantime. So thanks everyone for joining our webinar on disabilities in workplace. Today we have speakers Marko Jääskeläinen and Pauliina Lampinen. Pauliina is the executive director of VAMLAS, which is the support foundation for children and youth with disabilities. Over the past 3 years, she has been working as the executive director, which advocate of the foundation that advocates for the rights of children and with disabilities. The foundation provides expert services and training for employers in diversity management, inclusive job design, and accessible recruiting practices. Promotion of equality and diversity in labor market and work organization has been a key driver during Pauliina's career. And starting, we have Marko Jääskeläinen, who is the CEO and founder of Accessia Consulting. He is an accessibility and diversity expert and consultant. His expertise is in particular in diverse recruitment and working life practices. Marko has founded Accessia Consulting based on these values, and he has over 25 years of experience in different positions of trust and disability support association and other third sector organizations. So Marko will be the one starting, then Pauliina will give her presentation after him, after which we'll have time for questions at the end. If you want to submit your questions anonymously, please send them to Sophia Pauls, who will be moderating the chat. Otherwise, you can just post them to everyone to see, and we'll pick them up. Thank you for joining, and Marko, if you would like to get started.
Yes, thank you, Charlotta. I share my screen for you here. Hope that it's visible for you.
Yes, it is.
All right. So, good afternoon from my behalf, and this is my title this evening, and let's get started. So, a couple words about myself. I have been an entrepreneur since 2010, and nowadays I have mainly two areas in which I'm operating. The other one is the accessibility of the built environment, and the other one is diverse recruitment and working life. So why it's important and how should we do it. And I have 25 years of experience in NGOs in Finland and in Europe, namely in the disability sector. And also I'm physically disabled person since my birth, so I also have a personal experience about the issues I'm talking about. So I think the starting point is this one. So that on the other hand, we talk a lot about that we have shortage of manpower in different areas of working life, but at the same time we have quite a lot of people who would be eager to work, but for some reason they don't get the opportunity in working life or opportunity to show the knowledge and expertise they have. So I think this is the main thing we should really think about, and how to solve this issue. I think at the moment all kinds of diversity and equality and inclusion issues are very much on the table, and many people and organizations are talking about them, which is of course a good thing. But I think that we should actually move from cheering to action. And what I mean by that is that companies and other organizations, they need knowledge about this diverse recruitment issue. So what does it actually mean, and what this phenomenon is, and etc. And after that, they need some encouragement to take the, shall I say, baby steps towards the diverse recruitment. And I think one good options to do this and to give this encouragement is that we show some good examples from the companies who already has done these, shall I say, examples about the thought leaders. And I think these are the ways to give companies and organizations to that they have the courage to gain personal experiences about this important issue of diverse recruitment, especially when we're talking about recruiting the persons with disabilities. Couple words of partial working capacity as a phenomenon in Finland. So basically, as we all know, any one of us can lose the ability to work in seconds. We never know what's going to happen in life tomorrow, and it can happen permanently or temporarily. In Finland, we have approximately 1.9 million people. These kind of people, from which 600,000 think it affects their work or possibilities to get one. But what we should remember is that the partial working capacity is not the same as the incapability to work. And actually, we can go from partial capacity to perfect match when the job description and working conditions, etc., are suitable for this particular person. Well, how we can actually do this adaptation of working conditions? Here's some good ways to do it. So we can, if in this job description if there is something that this particular person cannot do for some reason, we can tailor that job description and divide it the work for his or her colleagues, for example. And also we can add something else if needed. So it's a question of adjusting the amount of the work and also the working speed. And then other measures are flexible working hours, part-time work, and also remote work, which actually the remote work is, shall I say, new normal because of this COVID situation in which we are at the moment. What comes into the work environment issues, it's about the accessibility of the workplace itself. Then you are able to go there, and also the usability of the tools and equipments needed when doing the job. A few things about the money or the financial compensations available when hiring people with disabilities. For salary costs, we have this thing called palkkatuki, wage subsidy, which 50% of the salary costs when employees' ability affects the performance of the work, and it's for 2 years, 2 years time maximum. And then about the working conditions, if there is a need for, shall I say, renovation of the accessibility of the built environment, you can get subsidy for that, and also for additional tools or requirements if they are needed for the work he or she is doing. Then some tips for the recruitment process when we talk about hiring people with the disabilities, even though I think that these are quite useful for everybody. So have you augmented clearly the must-haves in this particular job, so the person can think about if he or she is capable of doing that or not. Then about the accessibility again, so it's about the working place itself, and also the place where the job interview is held, if it's not online. So this is the accessibility thing. Well, at the interview, I suggest that you discuss openly about the requirements and expectations you have for the person who you are hiring. So even though you may not be able to ask directly things regarding the disability itself, but I think that as professional HR people, you have your ways to figure it out, because you are allowed to ask all the things regarding the job he or she is applying for when you are assessing the suitability for that. And when and if the person gets hired, is there support available during the orientation phase? I mean that if is there somebody that this person can turn to if he or she has something to ask or needs some help during the orientation phase. And also the work community, I mean the current employees, may want to discuss beforehand about how to welcome and take into account this new colleague with possible specific needs. And luckily there are coaching and trainings available for that kind of needs also. Then some front-runner companies, of course, there are many other of these also, but just a few examples for you. Unicus is a Norwegian IT consulting company, and they have a policy that they hire only consultants with autism. So they all employees have this, and it's their policy to do so, and they want to encourage others to do so also. Then you may know already. So IKEA is they do a lot of different kind of diversity things, but also regarding the diverse recruitment. And IKEA Finland was vastuullinen työnantaja, the most responsible employer 2021 winner last year. And the cleaning and maintenance company Sol, they also hire a lot of people with the disabilities, and they support them during the work. And also myself, I have been working together with IKEA and Sol, so I have personal experience for those also. Do you know him? He's Stephen Hawking. He's unfortunately passed away already. He was a world famous physicist, and he invented world famous theories in his area, and did a lot of famous work. And he was severely disabled. He had an ALS disease which can't be cured, so it leads to death, and he lived longer than ALS people usually do. But my message in this particular slide is that no matter how severely a person is disabled, if we have a will, we have a ways to find solutions how he or she can participate in working life and contribute to the society. So in a nutshell, if I think about if you want to hire a person with the disabilities, I see that the process itself is basically the same as it always is, which means that from the company side, you should know what do you need and how do you find it. And from the job seeker's point of view, it means that what is your expertise or passion, and how do you make it visible and discoverable. So as I see it, that's the case also, and also for the people with disabilities. So this really isn't any kind of rocket science. So thank you for your attention. Here's my contact details. Please feel free to contact me in LinkedIn or elsewhere if you want to continue discussion about these topics. Thank you.
Hey, thank you so much, Marko. Can everyone hear me okay? Marko,
Yes.
Can you hear me? Okay,
Yes.
Woo! Fantastic. Hi, everyone. My name is Hannah. I am the president of Nordic Inclusify. Thank you for everyone being here, and thank you, Marko, for the presentation. I'm going to do the questions at the end. I think that's how we arranged the structure in the beginning. So thank you, Marko. That was excellent. We'll jump to Paulina now for her presentation, and then we can go to the Q&A.
Thank you so much, Hannah. I try to share my screen now. See what happens. We had some small technical problems in the beginning. Are you able to see my presentation now?
Yes. Yes. Very
Great.
good.
Okay. So my name is Pauliina Lampinen, and like Charlotte earlier presented me, I'm the executive director of Vamlas Foundation. I also work as the president of Rehabilitation Finland, which is a worldwide organization, a member in a worldwide organization called Rehabilitation International, where we work in different kinds of areas of disability and disability policies, but also with rehabilitation services and how they are available to people all over the world. As for my foundation, we promote accessible services and rightful participation, education and paid work for all, and this is probably the area that we work most on at the moment. We also provide inclusive housing services for students in Helsinki and Lauttasaari, and we call it the way I want living and assistance, because these students have their own flats and we provide the assistance they need. So it's not a common service house, it's just a normal flats, student flats where these people live in. We provide expert services, training and research and development projects. We're about 30 people in total in my foundation. Okay, today I'm going to talk a little bit about the employer's point of view to hiring people with disabilities or hiring people with lowered working capacity. Marko was very clear on what employers need to know and also explained really well what kind of best practices there are and very concrete questions you can ask from the job seeker. I try to look at a little bit also the background of inclusion. Why do we need to promote it and why is it important? And then I'm going to explain a little bit about our methodology that my foundation has created. And in the end, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the experiences of employers and the benefits they've had from using our methodologies. Well, the labor market challenges, not only in Finland, but all over EU. EU members states are struggling with youth unemployment, with aging societies, immigration, and employment of immigrant people, early retirement due to mental health problems and other disabilities, and also COVID-19, which has caused a lot of loss of work, long-term health problems, and also, like Marko already said, remote work or telework, whichever term you prefer. So all over Europe, we need new strategies to help people back to work and strategies to help people to keep their work so that they wouldn't fall off. And if you look at the problems that the labor market has, inclusion is not only some ideal or some, just something that you want to do because it sounds good or it is cool to be thinking in an inclusive way. It's really strongly embedded in our legislation in the European labor market. I suppose all at least EU member states have ratified the UN Convention on the Rights of People with Disabilities. And by ratifying something like this convention, it actually means that you have to take on to some legislation to your national policies and legislation. So it's not just an ideal, it's actually a legal document. And EU has also recently renewed their disability strategy. They usually have this 10-year strategy. And if you haven't read it yet, I strongly suggest that you do, because it's actually a really good, it gives you a very good overview of what the situation of people with disabilities in EU is and how we can promote the inclusion. Then at least in Finnish and Nordic countries, the national labor market legislation is binding us to all of us employers to non-discrimination, positive discrimination. We have to, as employers, promote well-being in the workplace and also accessibility. And if I think about the legislation, we already have a very long tradition to promote employment of all, and in fact, at least in Finland, we have already, our constitution states that all people have the right to work and earn their living. And if I think about accessibility, there's also new legislation regarding to digital accessibility. A couple years back, there was an EU directive on accessibility of websites and mobile applications of public sector bodies. This legislation is also something that is going to be binding to some private sector organizations as well, like transport, banking, insurance, etc. So there are a lot of things behind just disability policies that are binding to employers all over Europe. And why we have such strong policies and why we have such strong labor market legislation is because of the reasons I showed you earlier. We need to increase labor market participation, and by increasing labor market participation, we can decrease poverty and segregation, which is also sort of like a security threat if segregation is growing and so on. And by this way, we also increase the resilience of the society. So it's actually not just employing people or hiring people with disabilities. It's a larger phenomenon in a larger society issue. Now I'm going to tell you a little bit about our Radko model, which is one particular way of working with employers. We have developed this model in our projects, and we have currently trained, I don't know, hundreds of employees to use this methodology. We've introduced it to very many organizations. And the whole idea is to help employers to recruit people from different directions, also people with lower working capacity or with a disability. It's also helping people with lower working capacity to stay in a job or to return to work after, for example, a long sick leave. It's all about job tailoring and redesign, like Marko earlier explained. And it's also about the diversity practices in the workplace. And some organizations feel that it's also a way to make corporate social responsibility visible in the practice of the workplaces. Traditionally, when we start working, and this is from the point of view of service providers, we have several service providers that try to find employment for people with disabilities or for people with lowered working capacity. And traditionally, this is what we call vocational rehabilitation process, starts from the individual's point of view, the job seeker's point of view. We look at the skills, capacities, and also the incapacities and help needs of the individual. And then we start looking for the tasks that would suit for this kind of a person. And then we take this person onto work community and hope that he or she will adjust to the work community. With Radko, we turn this whole triangle upside down and we start working with the community first. We start looking what the community needs, what the employer needs, what kind of tasks are available, and then we start looking for job seekers and candidates for the job. So we turn this process kind of upside down. And what happens in the Radko process, this is shortly in a nutshell, if it's a simple way of doing this, but of course, when you do this in practice, there might be many phases that go a little bit differently, but the basic idea is that first you contact the employer. You map the needs of the employer and the work community. This is what our Radko consultants, or people that we train to become as Radko consultants, do first. If the employer that they've contacted is interested in this methodology, we start doing workshops for the work community. And then after we have had these workshops where the aim is mapping work tasks and design new jobs or redesign existing jobs, we start assessing the job requirements. So we know what kind of skills and requirements this new task has. And for this, we use this particular Melba assessment tool. IMBA and Melba are assessment tools that are that we have, our foundation has taken in from Germany, and this is a very specific methodology also to assess what the job requirements are and what the person's work skills and capacities are. So after we have a job, after we've assessed it, we start finding a suitable job seekers and candidates for the job. And when we find the suitable candidates, if this person has a need for a job coach, we can take on a job coach for this position as well, and then this person can start working. When we do the workshops for job design, the whole idea is that every organization recognizes that there are more things for everyone to do that we have the time for. So everybody feels that they have some extra baggage on their jobs. And for example, the most famous phrase you hear is that, why do I have to go and get the coffee? Why do I have to run for the shop? It's not my job. Or why do I have to deal with this mail or these little practices when it's not really my main area of working? So this is where we start when we go to the workshop. We look at what people do, how they spend their time, what kind of tasks they do on a daily basis. And then once in the workshop, people take out post-it tags. They put out on the wall extra tasks that they have discussed together, and then they start looking at the whole situation and start building sort of like new jobs out of these extra tasks. And then finally, when they've figured out these extra tasks, they can start reorganizing them into a new job. And this way they can actually find the tasks that are important and useful for the organization. And it's important to emphasize that when you have an important and useful task or job description for the organization, it's usually much easier to fill than something that, okay, I have a person with a disability, can we find him something to do? And then once we have a job, once we have a job seeker, we can balance the requirements and the skills and match the new job and the new employee in the most successful way. And if we look at the experiences with Radko, like I said, we've done this with very many organizations. Employers have found it really useful, because when you do this workshop with the working teams, the team design actually helps to organize work and makes tasks visible. So not only are we looking at new tasks for somebody new to do and take on, but we also can look at the whole team's work task, and perhaps we can find ways to organize our work in a more practical way or more effective way, or it just makes everybody's work visible to others, so it's useful as such. the recruitment process is safer in a way that once you have something that you actually want somebody to come and do, you can also, this person that is hired knows that there is the actual job, and he also knows that he's capable of performing the task. So it's sort of like a win-win situation for both the employer and the employee. I said earlier about the legislation in the labor market, at least in Finland, return to work is cheaper than early retirement for employers. So there's a financial incentive to do this. When we do Radko, we focus on abilities and not the incapacities. And this is really so important. We should always focus on the abilities, and because that's how we build this person's capacities. If we only look at the things that the person cannot do, this it's not very productive way of thinking in the end. And then Marko already talked about the adjustments that can be found when looking for accessible working conditions. And what is most important, and we've done some research on this Radko model and the use of the process, is that the job seekers find it useful. And it kind of struck me when we did the research a couple of years back, is that the job seekers really find it important that once they enter the job, they know that it is needed. And I suppose it's because we have so many unsuccessful recruitment processes where person has been hired, but nobody really knows what this person can do or what she should do. So this has been truly interesting finding in our research. Because then with this process, the job seekers also have been assessed, and they know they have the capacity to perform the job, and they don't have all that doubt, and they kind of leave the baggage behind them that I'm the one with problems, I'm the one with incapacities. Rather, they enter the job thinking that, wow, there's a perfect job for me and I'm able to do it and perform really well and develop my skills in it. So it's a completely different mindset to start with a new job. After our Radko model, and this has been, like I explained, it's been one of our methodologies that we work with, but we've also worked with something that's called accessible recruitment. If you're Finnish speaking, you can find Esteetön rekrytointi website. You can look more information on there. Unfortunately, it's not translated into English yet, but when you start recruiting, you should also expand your search area. Pay attention to what you really need. Don't look for your favorite type. This is what we too often do. And from the employer's point of view, think, why would the job seeker choose us? What makes us interesting and attractive as employers? Nowadays, job seekers look for a good place to work. They look at the company values, they look at the possibilities to work flexibly, how they can participate, if there is equal treatment, if there is a diversity strategy, family-friendly accessibility strategy, etc. Many companies in the world have found it very important that they start building diversity strategies and accessibility strategy, because employees and job seekers have started to pay attention to these areas. One more thing I'd like to say, it's not written down on my slide, is that once you are an employer with a diverse workforce, and I've done this for now 20 years, or almost, no, 10 to 20 years, it is not always easy. I tell you that it's sometimes difficult to implement the diversity strategy you have built, because people are different, they want different things. Sometimes it's difficult to find the compromises. But then on the other hand, it's also something that's always teaches you something new, always forces you to look at things from different perspectives. And this way, it also helps yourself to grow as an employer. So it's definitely worth the while, even though it's not always the easiest way to recruit or work. So thank you for sharing your precious time with me. And please feel free to contact me on email. I'm also on LinkedIn if you're interested. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was awesome. I really love the Radko model that you have.
Thank you.
Did I say that right, Radko? Was that?
Yes. Yeah, it doesn't really matter. It's a silly name. It means something kind of in Finnish, but it means kind of like a solution.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay, very good. Thank you. So we can move a bit into the Q&A, and I'll get to other people's questions in a moment. But one of the first questions I wanted to ask is, like, we all agree like we should include people with disabilities in the workforce. But what are some like benefits of including them into the workforce? Like unique points of view that they bring, a different way of working, cultural, like workplace culture. Like what are some, and this goes for you and Marko too. What are the benefits, the positives that they can bring?
Do you want me to go first or Marko? Marko, I can't see him.
I'm sure he's there, but Paulina, if
okay.
you answer.
Okay, if I go first, then Marko can add. First of all, I think, like I tried to explain, I've been an employer for people with different backgrounds, from different diversity issues. Like I said, it's not always easy, and it's not like instant that you feel that this is a great benefit for my organization. But it does bring new perspectives, and especially if you work in a field where you kind of like, if you have to look for new customers, for example, it does make you, it forces you to think, how do I market? Is my marketing strategies, are they accessible? Can I actually find the people I want to find? Am I excluding somebody who might be interested in my products if I don't look into the whole diversity issue? Am I, there are a lot of like, if I think about communications, if I think about marketing, if I think about product promotion, if you do it only one way and you don't think about the people who look at it from another perspective, you're losing customers. You're losing potential customers, at least. That's one definite benefit, I suppose. We worked with one of the greatest amusement parks here in Finland, in Helsinki, Linnanmäki, and the reason why they worked with us, we actually built them several jobs for young people with disabilities to go and do their summer jobs in. The reason why they wanted to include young people with disabilities into their workforce was that they felt that as an amusement park, they are more welcome to all sorts of customers when their workforce is also diverse. So there's a clear benefit to that. And everybody knows, I don't know if everybody's seen Pretty Woman, for example, but everybody knows if you look different, if you don't fit in to the picture, people underestimate your skills and your ability to buy expensive stuff, for example. So that's kind of silly from an employer's point of view, and especially if you're on some kind of business where you actually have to sell services. Another thing is, like I explained earlier, is that the benefit is that when you start looking at, am I biased? Am I discriminating somebody feels that my way of talking or addressing them is discriminative? When you have a diverse workforce, you instantly hear about things that you might be doing wrong. And it makes you cautious, but cautious in a good way. because then you can look at the opportunities. Okay, how should I actually say this, and can we promote our can we have our work summer party in a place where everybody has to climb up millions of stairs, for example? If somebody's in a wheelchair, is this inclusive way of thinking? And what if I break my leg and I can't go and attend the fun event or whatever? So it forces you to think differently, and that's definitely the benefit of it.
Yeah, and at the end there, you touched on a really important part, that disabilities is one of the only minority groups that anyone can be a part of at any time.
Yes.
And that's something to really keep in mind when you're thinking about these recruitment processes and policies at work. Yes. Is like, you can so easily be the person with the broken neck or car
yes
crash.
And you can actually be working, for example, you might be working in a school building, and if you break your leg, you're going to be out of work. You can't access the building, for example, for 6 weeks. If the worst scenario, for example, that what's the point of having a situation like that when you could actually use this person's skills and capacities easily just by making the workplace accessible?
Exactly. And this is such a minor example, but I think for many people, when they start a family and they have a stroller, they all of a sudden realize how inaccessible so many things are.
Yes.
And you can really design better practices when it comes to at least wheelchair accessibility in certain buildings.
You can see that by going downtown, any downtown in the world. You find a cafe which is accessible. It's filled with mothers and coffee drinking and their strollers instantly.
Exactly. Marco, would you like to butt in with any comments?
Yeah, well, Pauliina had a lot of good points, so not that much to add, but a couple of things. So I think that diverse organizations are simply more profitable than others. So at the end, it's a question of money, a question of euros and dollars and profitability. So I think that's one quite big reason why we should care about this one. And also another thing is that if and when we have a scarcity of manpower in such many areas, so diversity is also a question of talent attraction. So people want to join in the organizations which share the same values as they have.
Yeah, exactly. And we know right now what kind of job market we are in, and how important talent attraction is and employer branding, and recruiting a diverse workforce. So going to the Q&A in the chat, I think, let's see here. I think Marco, you might have answered a few.
Yeah, a couple of those I answered, but there might be one which I forgot to.
Oh, it's okay. One of the questions was, is there any way to specifically target disabled people with recruitment marketing?
What do you think about? I think NGOs is one way.
Yes, and I think lot of you can do a lot of work with just by how you advertise the open position. If you advertise the open position, for example, if I advertise some position in my organization, we always put this last line saying that if you have a own experience of disability, we kind of, how do you say, we promote your application. So we want you to apply if you have personal experience on disability. So that means for a job seeker that, okay, if I am a person with a disability, they don't instantly look at like, oh no, we don't want to deal with a person like this or a candidate with like this. Of course, it doesn't mean that we always recruit people with disabilities, because like any employer, we look at the skills and we look at the capacities and we look at the personality and all those other things any employer does when they're hiring a person. But if you just put a little line saying that we're open for all kinds of applications, we're open for old people, young people, disabled people, it sends a message instantly to the possible applicants.
Yeah.
So it's a question of communication, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, you kind of make your values visible.
Yeah.
And it's also a question of using pictures, photos. There's one example, like I said, I've been working with diversity issues for a long time. There's one thing that one seminar, they were also discussing how to hire the best people, where to find the best people for the job. But a lot of technology organizations, a lot of high-tech organizations, when they recruit people, they tend to put the picture of a young, white, 25 to 35-year-old male with his jacket open, hair flying in the air, looking like he's really busy and really fit and really energetic and really able to, be a Superman in the organization. If you want to post that image, you're already making a statement that this is the kind of personality, this is the kind of gender, this is the kind of age range that we want, this is the kind of look we want. If they'd had a picture there saying that, maybe a cartoon even, it wouldn't put you already in a place that this is what we want to look like. Or then there are a lot of recruitment ads where they have a group of people in the photo, all of them white, all of them young, all of them slim, all of them really capable looking, really energetic looking. If you're different, if you have let's say, if you are in a wheelchair, if you're not fit looking, but you might be really brainy, you instantly start thinking like, I wonder if I fit in. But you might be a real gem for the organization. So think about the pictures, think about the image that you're sending out, because you can actually encourage people to join and look for jobs, but you can also discourage certain people. So I think it's really important the way you advertise.
Yeah, and then there's always the flip side, is if you have someone disabled, try not to go too far into tokenism in your recruitment marketing either.
Yes, true. And the tokenism is a very difficult issue. It goes along all sorts of minorities.
Yeah.
If it's a age minority, gender minority, racial minority, whatever, and it's never an easy position to be in. But you have to be aware of it, and if you are, as an employer or as a work community, aware of it, I suppose it's easier to cope with it too, and it's easier for the person who's forced to be the token, if it is the only one or the first one in the organization.
Yeah, I would say it's really important to keep communicating with them and see how they feel about their image being used. One, Charlotte reminded me that when people watch this later on or on YouTube, they can't actually read the chat. So Marco, if you could kind of re-answer one of the questions that was asked. Charlotte was interested in knowing more about the consultancy that only hires people with autism that you mentioned. Do they consult specifically on disabilities or neurodiversity, or is that a generic management consultancy?
I think that the work the consultants is doing, it's not actually related to the disabilities as such, but the work the consultants, the Unicus consultants are doing is related to the coding and program testing.
Okay. Okay, that's very cool. Yeah. I would be interested in learning more about them, and maybe we could talk about that after. I think that's a really cool company and the work that they're doing. One of the other questions to you, Marco, was, do you know how severe the disability has to be in order to get the wage subsidy? How does that work? Is it like a sliding scale, or?
As far as I know, there is no specific limit for the severity, but because it's the employment office which pays the wage subsidy, so a person has to submit a paper from the doctor which indicates that disability affects his or her performance of the work.
Okay.
Do you have something to add, Pauline?
Well, just that the Finnish legislation, it goes like Marco said, if you have it's not necessarily a disability. The wage subsidy is not necessarily limited to people with disabilities, but it's when a person has a difficult performing the job or some deficiency that makes it difficult for this person to perform in the job. That's why they pay the wage subsidy. In some other countries, in Europe, there are different systems. And in some countries, I believe that there is still something which is a wage subsidy for a person who has a disability. And then you need a certificate stating that you have a disability. And in that case, there might be some kind of scale of estimating what kind of disability you've got. But in some states, it might be different. But in Finland, it goes as like Marco explained.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. We do have a lot of recruiters and HR specialists in our Nordic Inclusified group and here in the event with us. Do you have any specific tips for recruiters? How and which point in the process should we discuss about the possible adaptations needed and the limitations the person has? I'm assuming like if the limitation is obvious, like at what point can you talk about accessibility and the recruitment process possibly? Is there any legal obligation there, or what do you suggest?
Well, first of all, yes, there are some legal obligations. The employer, if the employer wants to hire a person with a disability, the employer has to a certain extent, be able to offer accessible workplace. But if the employer doesn't have the means for it, they can apply for extra money from the employment offices and the employment system, so they can, it can be solved. The money issue can be solved. But if I think about a person with a disability that wants to, and the employer already has started to think that this will be a good person for us to come and work with us, and he has the skills and knowledge to do the job, oftentimes the person himself also knows pretty well what he or she needs. And you can be quite straightforward asking, I think, in most cases, asking like what kind of support needs you've got, what kind of assistive devices you need, and so on and so forth. For example, we used to have a person, a lawyer who worked in a project for us, but she was blind and also deaf. But she was very clear on what kind of adjustments were needed, and we were able to give her that, and we got the funding for doing that, like for certain kind of technology. We were funded from the employment offices, so we didn't have to pay it for ourselves. So it was very simple because she knew exactly what she needed, and she knew the programs and the technical requirements and so on and so forth. So we were able to do that.
Okay.
So oftentimes I just want to say that you can ask, because normally the person himself knows best what he needs. And then if there are a person who doesn't kind of like, and this might be the case, somebody asked in the chat about mental health issues and different kinds of problems. Lots of times you kind of sense that there might be something behind it. It's also the case when you already have somebody in the workplace and you start feeling that, okay, something is perhaps not right. Then the best way to do is to again talk about it openly and start offering kind of solutions like, okay, if you're on medication that makes it difficult for you to start at 9 o'clock, maybe you could start at 11 o'clock. Different kinds of arrangements, but you need to address them if it starts feeling that there's something wrong, because otherwise the employer cannot take the responsibility of the worker if he doesn't know what the worker needs.
And kind of going to the process, at what point would you should recruiters start talking about it? You know, I think there is the worry, like if you talk about accessibility issues before they're hired, it could easily be changed into a discrimination kind of lawsuit if they're not hired. But it's like you still need to know like a bit. So it's like kind of, what do you advise recruiters in processes?
Well, luckily, I would say that when we talk about the physical disabilities, they are usually very visible. So.
Okay, and that's fine. Yeah.
I think what you're asking is that when do you dare to ask a person who has applied for the job? When do you dare to ask if there's something that we need to know?
Yes.
I think the simplest way is to ask just that question. Is there anything that you'd like to tell? Is there anything that you'd like us to know on beforehand? Is there anything any reason why you want to apply for this job? Or is there any reasons why you wouldn't take on this job if you're put forward in the process? I think it's very clear, and recruiters can ask this way from anyone. We have so many disabilities that are not visible, and it's of course the person doesn't have to share anything with the recruiter, but I think the best way is to openly, first of all, announce that you're open for people who may have a disability, and that you explain the job requirements to the job seeker well. Like I said, in the Radko process, what we do is that we actually measure and assess the job requirements so that the person knows what is required. Oftentimes when we recruit people are looking for a job, and the recruiter thinks that they know what the job requires because they live in that business world, they live in that organization, and they know so well what the work requires, but they are unable to say it so that the job seekers understand it. Yeah. So they say, okay, we want this person to do this and this and this and this and this, and it's a never-ending list sometimes. Or then they just say, oh, we just want to have a chief accountant, and it's just the chief accountant's work. And then the person thinks, okay, I know what chief accountant does. And then in the end, they might be talking completely different kinds of work.
Yeah.
So be very straight and ask. If you don't understand what is going on, then you're able to not ask like what kind of illnesses or disabilities you have. You can't ask that, but you can always ask like, is there something you'd like to tell us? Is there something you'd like to know? Is there something you'd like to know about the job that's interesting to you? I can't give you any better advice. And I also remind you that this is the process with recruiting that goes on with every candidate. It's not only with a person with a visible disability.
Yeah, exactly. And there are so many fantastic questions here in the chat, and I really wish we could get through all of them. I'm going to ask this one question because we've been talking a lot about recruiters in the process, but what about regular employees? The question is, do you have any tips for regular employees who want to highlight the importance and need for diversity, equity and inclusion for the people making the decisions? What are the best ways to make someone understand the importance of DEI in the workplace?
Well, my
It's a
advice,
big question.
yeah, but if I give a short answer, it would be that this particular person should try to be the person who decides. So.
Mm-hmm.
I sometimes think, for example, why do big organizations want to, because it's a growing interest in inclusion and diversity issues in the world. Why is that happening? And because like I said, I started in late 80s, early 90s doing this work. It was then a new issue, especially here in Finland. It was really new, and everybody was like, what are we talking about? But now it seems like a lot of people want to talk about it. This seminar is a good example. We're interested in it, and we feel that it's the right thing to do. But what makes that change is that our societies are changing. We want to be more equal. We want to include people, all sorts of people. We recognize everybody's human rights better than we did like way back, and I think it's a natural way to attract different kinds of skilled workforce for companies. So it's always a bonus, and I think we start understanding it every time we are involved in situations where we find people with diverse backgrounds, when we learn something new from somebody that we never came across an idea like that, and then we go, wow, that's a good idea, why didn't I think about it? So yeah. We're changing, and we want to be more inclusive, and we want to be more diverse. Our workforce is so much more diverse than it used to be. It's completely different from when we look at the 70s or 80s, for example. And that's just the way world goes around, I suppose. And it would be quite stupid to bump into an organization nowadays who says that, no, we don't hire people over 30, or we hire people with this and this kind of background. Everybody would go like, what? Don't you think?
Mm-hmm. Totally. Yeah. And so I think I'm trying to decide one more question or not. I think we can take one more and then we can wrap up. Like mentioned, having great examples is a good way to show people and organizations how different disabilities can be taken care of in a workplace and what the benefits are. Silly question maybe, but how could I best find these examples? For example, this person, my cousin Jarkko Jokipaka has Down syndrome, and he works for Vincent in Tampere. I've seen articles and interviews about him, but that's only because I know him, is the quote. So what's the best way to find examples of when including people with disabilities? People can find resources.
Well, this shows that we have still a lot to do with this issue. But I think that those companies who have already started their journey towards the diverse recruitment things and such, they want to say it out loud, because at the moment they are still like champions offered because of these, because it's not mainstream yet. So that's why I think that those who are already doing it, they want to highlight those out loud.
I think that's a very fair response, and we just have a lot more work to do and getting more examples of it working. Paulina, did you?
Just that if you look at the disability organizations worldwide, they have plenty of professionals working in those organizations who themselves have a disability. So that's one example. It's and a long tradition of hiring people with disabilities is the all the disability organizations in the world, basically.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay. I guess we got to wrap up now. But time went by so fast. I didn't get to the question about neurodiversity, because that is a question. We will be talking about neurodiversity in March. That'll be our March topic in Nordic Inclusify, and we can talk about it then. So I'm sorry I didn't get to it this time. It's too much to talk about neurodiversity and physical diversity in one webinar. Marco, Paulina, do you have anything you want to add about yourself, promoting Vavlas, or any events coming up you would like to share with the audience? Or Marco, you have a consulting business. Is there anything else you would like to tell the audience?
Well, I think I have said most of my things, so just feel free to contact me if you think I can help you.
Sure, that's okay.
Yes, pretty much the same. If you're interested in our Radko model, please contact. We have you can also visit our website. We announce our trainings. We have regularly trainings on both the assessment methodologies in by Melba. We have Radko methodology trainings ongoing. And if you're interested in any kind of special consultancy, research, or sharing good experiences, please contact. We can always arrange something. I have some really good people working with me, so I'm sure we can find out something if you're interested.
I'm sure. Okay. Thank you so much. Next month, we will be having some kind of discussion workshop with finder seekers, talking about employer branding. So you stay tuned for more information about that. And don't forget to join our Slack channel if you want to keep up with Nordic Inclusify. And thank you again. Thank you so much, Marco and Paulina and everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.